The story introduces Oshiro Shintaro, a man with a dark gaze holding a knife, and a young, innocent-looking girl named Yamamoto Yatsuba, hinting at the complex relationship that will unfold. Oshiro Shintaro is seen with a crazed intensity, obsessively writing, his mind consumed by a singular, dark purpose. His room is a reflection of his troubled mind, with walls covered in posters of politicians he despises. He meticulously writes down his thoughts, a manifesto of his growing resentment. Surrounded by tools and weapons in a room filled with murderous intent, Oshiro prepares to unleash his own brand of justice, believing he will be the hero who saves his country. The news and social media are filled with negativity, citizens lamenting that Japan is done for, criticizing useless politicians, and a headline declaring that someone must stop the nation's collapse. This constant stream of bad news fuels Oshiro's anger. This is Oshiro Shintaro, 39 years old and unemployed. Despite his situation, he has honed his body into a weapon, training with a knife, determined to get the job done. Oshiro looks at himself with disgust, feeling that his own life is completely worthless. He sees himself as the bottom of the barrel, poorly educated, low income, and from a low social class. His life is a cycle of low-paying jobs, like this one as a traffic guard, and returning to a worn-down house. But a fire burns within him. With a look of grim determination, Oshiro decides that he can't just die like this, in misery and obscurity. His anxiety grows as he walks past posters of smiling politicians, wondering what he's supposed to do with his life. If he doesn't take action, what will become of him? He glares at the posters, his frustration mounting. The current government is run by the Japan Koden Party. Oshiro has identified 6 key figures, led by the Prime Minister, as his primary targets. Believing he is trained enough, he feels the time has finally come to act. Back in his room, Oshiro stares at the photos of his 6 targets pinned to the wall. His plan is set. He will take them all down in 1 week. His obsession begins to consume him. He laughs manically at the politicians' faces, yelling at the inanimate photos to shut up. His thoughts are interrupted by the constant noise from the large family that moved in next door. As he looks around his cluttered room, he ominously declares that this will be his last week. Losing his temper from the incessant noise, Oshiro furiously kicks the wall separating his apartment from his neighbors. Almost immediately after, the doorbell rings, startling him in the middle of his frustration. He opens the door to find his neighbor, an aggressive-looking woman with blonde hair, who immediately confronts him, asking if he wants to fight. The neighbor mother doesn't wait for an answer, grabbing Oshiro by his collar and yelling that she has 8 kids in her apartment. Oshiro, looking defeated, can only mumble that he doesn't want to fight. She gets closer, her face contorted with anger. She screams that it's only 10 p.m., not even midnight, and questions if he has a problem with her kids still being awake. From the apartment building, her shouting continues as she complains about the difficulty of raising 8 children with no financial aid in a country with a declining birth rate. Oshiro retreats into his apartment as the neighbor mother stands in the hallway, threatening to call a gangster she knows if he ever hits the wall again. As she yells, a small, worried child peeks out from behind her. "Don't you ever hit the wall again, you old bastard." Back in his apartment, Oshiro scoffs, calling her a toxic parent. He sits down, dejected, thinking that now, even more miserable kids exist in the world, born to a parent who had them without thinking. The confrontation triggers a painful memory. Oshiro recalls a dark figure from his own past, his own father, violently abusing him as a child, showing where his deep-seated trauma began. His father's cruel words, "Real men don't cry," "worthless failure," echo in his mind. The memory fades, and Oshiro is back in the present, trying to drink the pain away, connecting his current feelings of worthlessness to his childhood abuse. After his fit of rage, Oshiro sits back and lights a cigarette, a moment of calm reflection washing over him. He dismisses his anger, musing that the woman next door is, in her own way, just another victim of the country he despises. Still, his resolve is unchanged. His plan is set for 1 week from now. His quiet moment is shattered by a sudden burst of conviction. He leaps up, his voice filled with a desperate, manic energy. and screams to the empty room his ultimate goal. He will save this nation. The scene unexpectedly shifts. As Oshiro is busy changing a light bulb, he is not alone. Yamamoto Yatsuba, the little girl from next door, has somehow appeared in his apartment and is curiously inspecting his belongings. Oshiro turns and freezes in shock. He sees Yatsuba standing there, nonchalantly eating a bag of chips, as if it's the most normal thing in the world for her to be in a stranger's apartment. Completely bewildered, Oshiro stares as Yatsuba stands directly in front of his wall of targets. At her feet is the large, dark hole he had kicked in the wall earlier, revealing exactly how she got in. The memory of his angry kick flashes in his mind. Yatsuba simply explains that the walls in her room have holes, so she just went through them, as a diagram illustrates her crawling from her side to his. Panic sets in as Yatsuba points towards his neatly arranged collection of knives and weapons on the pegboard, asking what they are. Oshiro collapses in despair, his mind racing. If he's found out his entire plan, his life's new purpose will be over. From his perspective on the floor, Oshiro looks up at the small girl standing before him, his hands trembling. His thoughts darken as he contemplates what to do with this little brat, who threatens to unravel everything. The next day, the scene changes to a nearby park. In a surprising turn of events, Oshiro is sitting on a bench next to Yatsuba, a silent truce seemingly in place. Both wearing sunglasses to be incognito, Oshiro tells Yatsuba he got the thing she asked for. It appears a deal has been struck, and she is now holding a toy gun, likely a bribe for her silence. Yatsuba seems pleased with her end of the bargain, a day's worth of snacks. As she walks away, Oshiro watches her, his expression unreadable behind his sunglasses. Back at the apartment complex, kneeling by the hole, Oshiro confirms Yatsuba's name and makes her promise not to tell her mother. Yatsuba, however, sees an opportunity. With a sly smile, she makes a counteroffer. She'll keep the secret if he buys her snacks every single day. Oshiro is furious at this unexpected complication. This is not the time for this. He looks at the materials for his homemade bomb, including bug spray, realizing this child has stumbled into his life at the worst possible moment. He decides to compartmentalize. He'll just have to cover up the hole for now and focus on carrying out his grand plan next week, hoping this problem with the child doesn't escalate. But Yatsuba isn't finished. She has another request. He also needs to buy snacks for her younger brothers and sisters. She lists off 4 names, holding up 5 fingers to include herself. Oshiro is shocked to learn there are 5 of them. Yatsuba clarifies that her older brother and sister aren't home, so it's just the 5 younger ones. Oshiro worries that buying snacks for so many children will surely get him caught by their mother. But Yatsuba reassures him, taking off her sunglasses and stating that their mom is hardly ever home enough to notice anything. Stunned by her casual admission, Oshiro asks a crucial question. Who prepares their meals? Yatsuba's reply is chilling. They don't get meals. They just endure the hunger until morning. The girl's words weigh heavily on him. As he rides his scooter through the city, he finds himself in a daze, wondering what the hell he is doing with his life, getting entangled with these neglected children. While stopped in traffic, he glances over at the car next to him and is surprised to see a familiar face in the driver's seat. It's the neighbor mother. He watches in silence as she passionately kisses an unknown man in the passenger seat, completely oblivious to the world around them. Oshiro watches with cold fury as her car speeds away. His mind burns with a single thought. What the hell is she doing, leaving her kids all alone at home while she's out with a man? Having made a decision, Oshiro returns to his apartment. He finds Yatsuba and hands her a plastic bag full of groceries, not just snacks. He explains that snacks alone aren't enough, handing over a bag of proper food. He watches in silence as Yatsuba takes the bag and disappears back through the hole in the wall, leaving him alone in his quiet apartment. Slumped against the wall, Oshiro reflects on the absurd irony of his situation. While the children's mother is out pursuing her own selfish pleasures, he, a man who planned to be a national savior, is instead here, feeding her abandoned kids. Oshiro stares blankly, wondering how his life took this strange turn. From the other side of the wall, through the hole now playfully labeled Yatsuba's tunnel. He can hear the children's happy voices exclaiming how delicious the food is. He sits in the dark, listening to the sounds of pure joy from next door. The children celebrate over cheeseburgers, fries, and nuggets, their cheerful chatter filling the silence of his lonely apartment. Oshiro tries to shut it out, his expression hardening. He tells himself that this is all just background noise, something to be ignored. He descends into a dark internal monologue, dismissing the children's voices as noise he doesn't need in his life. But his own past trauma intrudes, the memory of his father's abusive yelling echoing in his head. Just as he's lost in his dark thoughts, a piece of paper is poked through the hole. It's Yatsuba, emerging from the tunnel again, pulling him back to the present. She explains that she's just returning the trash from the meal, so that her mom won't find out. With her task done, she prepares to leave. But before she disappears, she turns back. She holds out her own half-eaten hamburger, offering it to him. She tells him he can eat it, but he refuses. He is completely taken aback, asking with disbelief if the hamburger is really for him. Looking at him earnestly, she explains that she wants to give him her portion as a thank you, declaring that he is her favorite guy. Deeply moved, Oshiro can only stammer out a thanks as he accepts the small gift. Yatsuba gives him a cheerful wink and a peace sign, wishing him good night before disappearing back through her tunnel. The scene cuts to his workbench, where his homemade shotgun lies ready, a stark and brutal contrast to the simple, kind offering he now holds in his hand. Oshiro looks at the squashed hamburger, then takes a bite. He reflects on the naivety of children, especially those who are poor and have never been shown anything different. He chides himself for feeling happy about receiving a gift he paid for. But the truth of the situation crashes down on him as he pictures the squalor next door. She gave it to him because she has nothing. No food, no money. He clutches the hamburger, the weight of her desperation hitting him with full force. These children have absolutely nothing. As he continues to eat the hamburger given to him by a starving child, tears stream down Oshiro's face. He has a profound realization. If he doesn't focus on his own life, he will truly have nothing to give to others who are suffering even more than him. Oshiro Shintaro, a man consumed by despair, continues his secret routine. For 5 days, he has been passing food through a hole in the wall to his neglected neighbors. A calendar marks the passage of time, with the 16th circled, a day he had designated for a different, darker purpose. The time for preparation is over. Oshiro carefully packs his gear, including a homemade shotgun, into a backpack. His movements are methodical and filled with grim determination. Wearing a beanie and a face mask, Oshiro stands ready to leave his apartment. Behind him, a calendar shows it is July, and the wall is covered with the faces of politicians, his original targets. On the left, we see the boarded-up hole in the wall he once used to feed the children. On the right, the faces of politicians are pinned to the wall, each one pierced by a sharp object, a chilling testament to his meticulous and hateful planning. A close-up on Oshiro's eyes reveals a burning intensity. The despair has been forged into a sharp, focused rage, ready to be unleashed. Now fully disguised, Oshiro declares that today will be the death anniversary for the corrupt figures he blames for his misery. His initial plan of political assassination is about to begin. Just as he is about to leave, a commotion from his neighbor's apartment stops him in his tracks. A desperate voice cries out, "Let me go, you bastard!" Oshiro's anger flares. He hears more shouting. "Fuck! Let go of me! Where are you taking the kid?" His focus shifts from his grand plan to the immediate violence unfolding next door. The aggressor's voice cuts through the wall, cold and cruel. "Shut up, bitch. This is because of your debt." The motive is clear. This is a violent debt collection. Oshiro rushes to his neighbor's apartment. He's met with a scene of despair. The mother is collapsed on the floor, her home in disarray. He realizes the man's voice he heard belongs to an intruder. Stunned, Oshiro takes in the chaotic scene. His neighbor is crumpled on the floor, while another woman sits in the background, equally distressed. He asks what's going on, unable to process the situation. His eyes dart to the back of the room, where he sees 2 small children hiding in fear. The question, "What happened hangs in the air as the grim reality sets in. The mother, her face bruised and full of anguish, turns to him. She explains that her child was taken. Oshiro watches, a silent witness to her pain. Oshiro quickly moves to the balcony, peering down at the street below, trying to catch a glimpse of the kidnapper's vehicle as it speeds away. The mother explains the horrifying truth through her tears. It was the Yakuza. They took her daughter, Yatsuba, as payment for her debt. Oshiro is stunned into silence. An image of the little girl, Yatsuba, flashes in his mind, the same child he had been secretly feeding. The mother reveals the true depth of her powerlessness. She can't call the police because the Yakuza are backed by the powerful Kakubo group, who have already destroyed her friend's house. Oshiro's patience snaps. He grabs the mother, his face contorted with rage, demanding to know if she will simply stand by and let her child suffer. Overwhelmed by fear and helplessness, she screams back at him, "I don't know." The two are trapped in a vortex of desperation. Her facade crumbles completely. She confesses that she's at her limit, that no matter how much she sacrifices, the debt and burdens are inescapable. It's an impossible situation. The mother finally collapses, physically and emotionally defeated, repeating that she's at her limit. Oshiro can only stand and watch her utter breakdown. The remaining children cry out for their mama as she sobs, pleading for someone, anyone, to help her. Her cry for help is directed at a stunned Oshiro. A profound shift occurs within Oshiro. He looks down at the calendar, at the circled date, the 16th, the day he intended to start his war on politicians. But now a new, more immediate target has appeared. With cold, unwavering resolve, Oshiro pulls his mask up over his face. His original plan is abandoned. Today, his war begins not with politicians, but with the ones who took the child. His new destination is an unassuming building housing the Saraku Sanjo office. Inside, the Yakuza hold Yatsuba, completely unaware that a rescuer of a terrifying new kind is now on his way. Inside the Saraku Sanjo office, the Yakuza boss reviews the details of their latest acquisition. His subordinates stand around, one of them holding the terrified Yamamoto Yatsuba. The file confirms her identity. Yamamoto Yatsuba, 8 years old. The men casually discuss her as if she were merchandise. The boss gives his orders, arranging for the girl's delivery. He confirms with his underling that Yatsuba has 7 more siblings, seeing them only as future assets. A cruel realization dawns on the men. With so many siblings, there's a lot more money to be earned. They laugh at the prospect of kidnapping more children from the desperate family. Outside, Oshiro listens in horror. He hears them joke about paying $1 million for another girl. He questions his chances against 8 armed men, but their depravity fuels his resolve. Hesitation gives way to action. Oshiro bursts through the door, grabbing the nearest Yakuza member and holding a knife to his eye. He screams that he doesn't care about the odds. With Yatsuba's fate hanging in the balance, Oshiro knows he is her only hope. He throws the human shield forward, creating a chaotic entrance to begin his assault. The sudden, violent intrusion sends a room into chaos. The Yakuza members, caught completely off guard, scramble to react to the masked attacker. Oshiro stands firm, brandishing his crude, multi-barreled shotgun. From an overhead view, we see the bodies of the first 2 men on the floor. The boss, stunned, can only ask if this is a raid. A terrifying close-up reveals the crude but deadly nature of Oshiro's weapon. 4 pipes bundled together, an instrument of pure, unadulterated carnage. The Yakuza boss screams in a mix of fury and disbelief, recognizing the weapon for what it is, a homemade gun. Everyone, get your guns out. The remaining Yakuza draw their pistols and charge towards Oshiro, attempting to overwhelm him with their superior numbers and firearms. Oshiro fires. The homemade shotgun erupts, and 2 more Yakuza are brutally dispatched with simultaneous headshots. The room is a scene of carnage. Bodies lie on the floor as the remaining gangsters look on in shock and horror at the raw power of the amateur's weapon. "Kill him," the boss screams. As the gangsters open fire, Oshiro grabs one of their own, using him as a human shield against the hail of bullets. For a fleeting moment, Oshiro seems to question his own actions. An unnerving calm has settled over him, and he wonders why he isn't panicking. The remaining Yakuza try to press their advantage, but Oshiro is too quick. He dodges a clumsy attack and closes the distance, switching from range to melee combat in an instant. With brutal efficiency, Oshiro plunges his knife into 2 more Yakuza members, taking them down in a single, fluid motion. Oshiro improvises, throwing his knife to disarm one attacker just as another takes aim. The fight becomes a blur of calculated violence. Amidst the slaughter, Oshiro feels a chilling sense of calm. He acknowledges he's never used a gun before and briefly questions if he should stop. But a new, darker part of him has already taken control. A surviving gangster, seeing Oshiro now unarmed, thinks he can take him with his bare hands. But the Yakuza boss is merely surprised, watching the bizarre turn of events. The boss is the last one standing, his office littered with the bodies of his men. In just 30 seconds, 7 of them are dead. He confronts Oshiro, baffled by the strange gun, and asking if he's a professional. The boss points his gun at Oshiro, demanding to know who hired him. He can't comprehend that this attack isn't business, but something far more personal and chaotic. The boss screams, "Don't move. It's your turn to die." As he takes aim, his own reflection is visible in Oshiro's terrified, yet strangely calm eyes. As he aims, the boss seems to notice something off about his opponent. He mutters, "Your pinky is missing." A common assumption for hired killers in his world, yet something feels wrong about this masked man. In the tense standoff, Oshiro calmly looks at the crime boss. With unsettling confidence, he predicts, "Your gun will miss." A strange euphoria washes over Oshiro. He wonders to himself how he could have possibly known the boss would miss, despite this being his first time in a gunfight. A natural, terrifying instinct is awakening. The boss hesitates, sweat beading on his forehead. He knows Oshiro is right, but his pride won't let him back down. The answer is obvious. He has to shoot. In a flash, Oshiro dodges the bullet and closes the distance, driving his knife deep into the boss's throat. As the man falls, Oshiro reveals his newfound identity. "I am a genius murderer." Oshiro stands over the corpse of the last Yakuza, the architect of Yatsuba's abduction. A quiet, unsettling laugh begins to bubble up from within him. The quiet laugh erupts into a full-blown, manic cackle. He admits to himself that he's never killed before, and the realization fills him with a horrifying sense of joy and power. A flashback to his old life as a traffic warden. He remembers the feeling of being invisible, of his life being a void of pure emptiness. Back in the present, surrounded by death, he screams in triumph, "I've finally found it. My talent. Proof that I exist." He stares down at his blood-soaked hands, the proof of his newfound purpose. Oshiro examines his bloody hands with fascination. He turns from the carnage, his grim work complete, only to be stopped by a small voice calling out, "Old man." He finds Yatsuba hiding behind a bookshelf, trembling. The chaos of the massacre fades as his focus shifts entirely to the terrified child he came to save. His expression softens as he sees her. Kneeling down, he gently unties her hands and pulls her into a protective embrace, shielding her from the horrors around them. He holds her tight, whispering words of comfort. "Everything's all right now. I'm here for you." For the first time since her abduction, Yatsuba is safe. Gently, Oshiro removes the crude bag that had been placed over Yatsuba's head. Her face is stained with sweat and tears, her small body trembling with fear. The little girl lets out a raw, desperate cry of gratitude, the single word "thanks," carrying all the weight of her terrifying ordeal. Overwhelmed, Oshiro sheds a single tear. He then gently guides Yatsuba away from the bloody scene, his mission almost complete. With his blood-stained hand still on her, he pulls her into one last hug. "Well, let's get you home," he says, the promise of safety finally within reach. As a final touch, Oshiro leaves behind an improvised explosive device. The timer ticks away, set to erase all evidence of his bloody work and send a message to those who prey on the weak. The chapter opens on a grim scene. A building scarred by a recent violent incident, is surrounded by police cars and cordoned off with tape as investigators begin their work. Police officers hold back the public, warning them of the danger. Meanwhile, two imposing bald men in suits try to push their way onto the scene, but are intercepted by a younger man with an armband, Sakamoto, who tells them they can't enter. Sakamoto pleads with the two men to listen to him, but they ignore his authority and duck under the police tape, entering the restricted area. Another man in a suit, Nakai, calmly tells Sakamoto that the two men are approved to be there. He advises Sakamoto not to worry and, more importantly, not to get involved. The two bald men glare menacingly, with a clear warning being issued. Do not pick a fight with the Kokubu group. Inside the building, amidst the debris, one of the bald men known as Aniki crouches down to inspect the gruesome scene, where a body lies on the floor. With a steady hand, Aniki reaches towards the victim's disfigured face, preparing to retrieve something from within the wreckage. In a shocking and bizarre method of investigation, Aniki places the evidence he retrieved from the body directly into his own mouth to analyze it by taste. He immediately gags, the taste seemingly vile. The other forensics workers look on, horrified and disgusted by his unorthodox methods. Aniki spits out the object, revealing a small metal pellet lodged in the piercing on his tongue. His partner approaches him, calling him Aniki, and asking what he found out from his disgusting taste test. The partner examines the pellets, noting that they look like silver bullets from a shotgun. However, he realizes there are no cartridge cases and questions if they might just be simple fishing sinkers from a home center. Based on the crude ammunition, he comes to a chilling conclusion. The weapon used wasn't professional. It was a homemade gun. The scene shifts to the man responsible, Oshiro Shintaro, as he rides away on a scooter with the young girl Yatsuba. He internally reflects that if the killer used such crude equipment, he couldn't be a professional. He was just an ordinary person. As they drive through the city, they pass a large campaign board covered in the posters of politicians, a visual echo of Oshiro's former, now abandoned, obsession. Oshiro and Yatsuba arrive at her apartment building. They climb the stairs, and he presses the buzzer for apartment 2 to 404. The door swings open to reveal Yatsuba's mother. Her eyes widen in pure shock and disbelief as she sees her daughter standing there safe. Yatsuba looks up at her mother and quietly says, "I'm back." Her mother is too stunned to speak, simply staring at the daughter she thought she might have lost forever. Finally breaking from her shock, Yatsuba's mother drops to her knees and pulls the little girl into a powerful, desperate hug. In the background, other small children, Yatsuba's siblings, peek out from the doorway. Clutching Yatsuba, her mother breaks down into tears, apologizing over and over. She sobs, telling her daughter how sorry she is for being a bad mother. Wrapped in her mother's embrace, the fear and tension finally leave Yatsuba as she begins to cry, relieved to be home. Seeing their sister and mother crying, the other children rush forward and join the hug, all of them clinging together. Standing back, Oshiro watches the emotional reunion with a quiet, unreadable expression. Oshiro turns to leave the family to their moment, but Yatsuba's mother calls out for him to wait, her voice filled with urgency. She looks at him, her face a mixture of confusion, desperation, and a sliver of hope, as she struggles to form the question burning in her mind. How did he manage to bring her daughter back? Her mind races through the possibilities. Did he resolve it with money? Through discussion? Or did he have powerful connections? She asks aloud, unable to comprehend how this quiet stranger could have possibly succeeded. Before he can answer, Yatsuba's mother, Yamato, notices something horrifying. Her eyes fixate on his hand, where splatters of blood are visible on his sleeve, and a dreadful realization dawns on her. There's no way, did he? Oshiro ignores her questions about money and connections. He delivers a grim, urgent warning. Yamato, we should move out of this house. Kokubu has this address. It's only a matter of time before they come for us. Yamato is stunned by the news. Move out? Come for us? She repeats in disbelief. Oshiro looks out over the cityscape and confirms her fears, telling her to leave right away if possible. The weight of the situation crushes Yamato. She panics, screaming at him. Are you kidding me? Where do I even go? And where do I get money from? But Oshiro is unmoved, coldly telling her that now is not the time to worry about such things, and that she must prioritize her children's safety. He gives her one last, sharp command, leaving no room for argument. Fulfill your duty as their mother. Oshiro turns and leaves without another word. Yamato is left standing alone in the hallway, surrounded by her children. She trembles, clenching her fists in a storm of helpless rage and despair. Returning to his own apartment next door, Oshiro leans against the wall, exhausted. He removes his beanie, wiping his face, the adrenaline from the night's events finally beginning to wear off. Inside his Spartan apartment, he quickly strips off his hoodie, eager to wash away the filth and blood of his recent actions. He throws his clothes in a pile and heads for the shower. The panels reveal a physique honed by relentless training, a body transformed into a weapon. As he washes himself, his mind races. He thinks about the need to escape, to take only the essentials and leave everything unnecessary behind. After his shower, dressed only in shorts, he rushes through his apartment. A frantic energy possesses him as he thinks, "Hurry up, before those guys start coming after us. I'll go somewhere far away where they can't reach me, as fast as I can." He comes to a stop in his room, which is filled with workout gear and tools. His eyes land on a cardboard box in the middle of the floor. From the box, he pulls out an envelope. The characters on it are stark and clear. Death Testament. It's his own last will. With a towel draped over his shoulders, he stands and calmly reads over the will he prepared before setting out on his mission. He sits on the floor of his workshop, surrounded by his tools and equipment, and lights a cigarette, placing it next to his will. Leaning against his drawers, with his wall of targeted politicians and weapons in the background, he takes a long drag from his cigarette, lost in thought. Now wearing a clean hoodie, he sits in the quiet of his room and a strange, new thought surfaces. I finally feel alive again. He stares at the wall, at the photos of politicians he had intended to assassinate, each one pinned by a knife. Yesterday, he thinks, I should have rushed into the party Congress meeting and killed all those politicians. I was supposed to die. He continues his reflection. But I failed to fulfill my goal. I killed some Yakuza and came here. But why? Oshiro looks at the blueprints for his homemade weapons. He failed at the grand plan he had held onto for so long. And yet, despite that failure, he wonders, why is tobacco so good? He runs a hand through his hair, a sheen of sweat on his brow. The contradiction of his feelings is overwhelming. A look of strange pleasure crosses his face. Why do I feel so fulfilled? He asked himself. It's almost enchanting. I've never felt this way before. His mind flashes back to the crime scene from the previous night. He reflects on what he learned. I thought I was weak. About my strength. His mind flashes back to the massacre. He'd always thought he had no talent for violence, no capacity for it. But standing there, amidst the carnage he created, he realized that for the first time in his life, he had tasted complete triumph. That triumph wasn't born from talent, but forged right here, in this room. He remembers the endless, grueling repetitions, the push-ups, the swings of a hammer, the relentless practice. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of times, he had drilled himself, preparing for a victory he now understood. Smoking his cigarette, Oshiro looks over the tools of his new trade. All the painstaking preparation, the weapons crafting, the training, it all finally feels like it has paid off. For the first time, he feels a sense of accomplishment. He glances back at the wall of politicians he once despised. But now, as he looks at their faces, the burning rage he once felt is gone. He feels nothing. The complex ideologies and hatred have been washed away. In their place, all that remains is a pure, simple pleasure of being alive. He questions his former self. Was assassination meant for me? He insists he wasn't like the powerless people who just complain on the internet. He was truly serious about his deadly mission. He recalls the grand, abstract ideals he was willing to die for. Save Japan. Save the people. Become a hero. Noblesse oblige. A mission to save the country from collapse. In his mind, All the filth of his political hatred, all the ideologies he had piled up, have been flushed away, completely vanished as he gets dressed in clean clothes, a symbolic rebirth. His grand political crusade is no longer his concern. With his purpose now crystal clear, he turns his attention to the only thing he has to worry about right now. The small, terrified girl, Yatsuba, huddled in the corner of his room. He approaches Yatsuba, his expression hardening with a new resolve. He clenches his fist, not in anger, but in a silent vow of protection. Yatsuba remains silent, withdrawn, hugging her knees to her chest. Oshiro observes her, his face softening as he takes in the girl's trauma. He sits down on the floor near her, trying to appear non-threatening. In a gentle voice, he asks her a simple question. "Did you eat?" Oshiro asks what she wants to eat, but Yatsuba says she isn't hungry. Her trauma then resurfaces as she begins to cry, terrified. Those guys, if they come again. She's haunted by the memory of the leering Yakuza, terrified they will take her, her mother, and her sibling you away again. The little girl trembles, consumed by her fear. Watching her, Oshiro's expression shifts from concern to grim determination. He gently rests his hand on her head, offering what comfort he can. With a voice full of regret for what she's endured, he says, "I'm so sorry." He pulls her into a protective embrace, making a solemn vow. "Everything's all right. I will protect all of you guys. Your siblings, your mother, and you as well, Yatsuba." He looks down at the tearful girl, his own eyes filled with an unbreakable resolve. "No matter who I have to face." His voice is absolute as he makes his final promise. "I will never lose." The scene then cuts away. 2 days later, a lone cat wanders down a quiet suburban street. The cat stops in the middle of the road, its attention caught by an approaching car. It stares, frozen in the path of the vehicle. The car barrels forward without any attempt to slow down, running the cat over. Behind the wheel is one of the bald Yakuza members from the earlier crime scene. The 2 Yakuza from the crime scene get out of the car. To demonstrate their casual cruelty, one of them deliberately grinds his shoe into the body of the cat they just killed. One of the men holds up his phone. On the screen is a detailed profile of Yatsuba Yamamoto, complete with her photo and address, matching the apartment building behind them. They've found her. The chapter ends. The scene opens with Oshiro Shintaro, who stands solemnly for a moment before starting to throw away his belongings, clearing out his apartment. With a heavy heart, Oshiro gets rid of almost everything he owns. The arrangements to leave are nearly complete, a necessary step for him to disappear. His neighbor Ayumu, the mother of the children next door, explodes with rage and desperation. She screams, questioning why they have to move, insisting it has nothing to do with her and that they have nowhere else to go. She angrily dismisses the idea of returning to her parents' home, revealing a past with an abusive, drunken father. Her children stand behind her, their faces filled with fear and confusion as they learn the Yakuza are after them. Furious and feeling trapped, Ayumu gives Oshiro the middle finger, warning him not to drag her family into his mess and that he's dead if the Yakuza come for them. 2 days pass. Oshiro stands alone in the hallway, his face etched with frustration. He couldn't get through to Ayumu at all. He stands in a designated smoking area, wrestling with his thoughts, wondering if he should tell her he killed the Yakuza members. Just then, 2 men in suits, clearly Yakuza, walk into view, marking the beginning of Chapter 3 visitors. The Yakuza enforcer Soji gets the attention of his boss, Aniki, pointing something out as they walk past the garbage collection spot. Soji points to the stacks of newspapers Oshiro had thrown out, which are covered in headlines about conspiracies, and calls to wake up. "Open your eyes." Aniki laughs it off, assuming some conspiracy theorist just came to their senses and got rid of the papers. They continue walking towards the apartment building. The 2 Yakuza members walk towards the entrance of the apartment building, dismissing the discarded newspapers as irrelevant to their lives or politics, and proceed to press the button for one of the apartments. Ayumu opens her door, enraged to find 2 strange men at her doorstep so early in the morning. The Yakuza don't waste a second. Aniki violently grabs Ayumu by her hair, silencing her protests as they begin to force their way into her home. The door closes with a thud as Aniki drags the struggling Ayumu inside, telling her they need to have a talk. From a nearby stairwell, Oshiro hears the door slam shut. He immediately realizes something is wrong and rushes towards the sound, his face filled with shock and dread. Oshiro panics, running through his own apartment with a sense of urgency, repeating to himself that this is bad, very bad. He enters a room to find a terrified Yatsuba, who has crawled through a hole in the wall. Crying, she tells him that the old man and his accomplice are here. Oshiro looks at a wall where he has pinned photos of various politicians, his intended targets, now splattered with what appears to be blood or ink. Overwhelmed by the sudden turn of events, Oshiro starts coughing, the stress of the situation clearly getting to him. Yatsuba cries out in terror, believing the Yakuza will kill her mother. Hearing this, Oshiro tells her to hide in the bathroom as he quickly grabs a sharp, dart-like weapon from his shelf. As Yatsuba scrambles into the bathroom for safety, Oshiro turns to her with a look of fierce determination, promising that he will protect her. Oshiro bursts through the hole in the wall connecting their apartments, throwing a dart-like object. He lunges into the next room, ready to fight, catching the Yakuza by surprise. The horrifying scene is revealed. Aniki holds Ayumu hostage with her mouth covered, while Soji has one of her children in a chokehold. Oshiro stands before them, bloodied but defiant, holding a knife ready to attack. Aniki holds Ayumu while his subordinate, Soji, restrains one of the children. Soji looks at the bloodied Oshiro and contemptuously asks, "Who are you?" The child that Soji had grabbed now lies on the floor, whimpering in pain. This sight focuses Oshiro's attention, his eyes locking onto the two intruders with cold, determined fury. Oshiro stands in the middle of the chaotic room, facing the two Yakuza. Ayumu and her child are on the floor, terrified but unharmed for the moment. From the other room, another child calls out for Ayumu, asking if she's okay. But the child on the floor just whimpers to his mother that he's hurt, drawing Oshiro's attention to the two Yakuza responsible. Seeing the child in pain ignites a furious rage in Oshiro. He seethes, wondering why it's always the innocent children who have to suffer. Aniki's eyes widen with a sinister smile as he recognizes Oshiro, wondering if this is the man who killed 8 of their members. Fueled by righteous fury, Oshiro lunges forward with his knife, his mind consumed by a single thought. He will kill both of them. The two Yakuza ready themselves, getting into a fighting stance. Oshiro clutches his knife, trying to convince himself that he'll win, that he will definitely kill them. Soji questions Oshiro's confidence, asking if he plans to take them on with his bare hands. Oshiro retorts that he's already killed 8 people. Oshiro swings his knife, but Soji easily dodges the attack, showing his experience in close-quarters combat. As Oshiro attacks, he leaves himself wide open. Aniki smashes a bottle over his head, and Soji simultaneously lands a hard punch, disorienting him completely. The fight turns against him in an instant. Aniki lands a brutal kick, and Oshiro is hit with a powerful punch to the face, stunned by the force of the blow. The two Yakuza coordinate their attack perfectly. As Oshiro tries to defend himself with a knife, they overwhelm him with a flurry of kicks and punches. Oshiro cries out in pain as he tries to shield himself, but the onslaught is too much. He's completely outmatched. A final, powerful punch sends Oshiro flying backwards. He loses his grip on the knife, his body slumping as he questions what's wrong with him. The Yakuza are perplexed by how weak he is in a direct fight. On the ground, Oshiro struggles to understand what's happening to him, desperately trying to make his body move. As another punch lands, shattering his defenses, a grim realization dawns on Oshiro. He finally understands why he can't fight back effectively. The brutal reality hits him. He never considered this scenario, a 2-on-1 fight in hand-to-hand combat. His mind flashes back to his fantasies of stabbing and shooting defenseless politicians. He never once thought about what it would be like to fight trained killers with his bare hands. Aniki grabs the beaten Oshiro by the neck, wondering aloud how this old man managed to kill 8 of their guys. Soji speculates that he must have just caught them off guard. As he's being choked, Oshiro finally gets it. He was only ever prepared for assassinations through surprise attacks. In the background, Ayumu holds her terrified children, watching helplessly. Aniki holds up his phone, sneering at the defeated Oshiro. He declares that, after all, Oshiro really is just an amateur. Aniki confirms that Oshiro was the one who killed the 8 Yakuza members. He offers a sarcastic compliment, saying Oshiro deserves it, while the family watches in terror. However, Aniki continues his monologue, taking a selfie with the captured Oshiro. He tells him it's over, that he's far from being able to beat pros like them. Aniki sends the photos from his phone, stating that while there are tons of pros in the world, there are even more amateurs like Oshiro. Aniki continues his condescending lecture, musing that amateurs sometimes carelessly try to imitate professionals, picking fights they are destined to lose. He explains that they inevitably bite off more than they can chew, only to end up being hunted down. With a final, pitying look, he tells Oshiro that his wannabe assassin game ends here. But something in Oshiro snaps. His eyes burn with defiance as he tells Aniki that he doesn't want to be lumped in with scum like them. He declares that he was seriously, truly committed to making the world a better place. He insists that his principles haven't changed. Unlike them, who kill for money, he only killed scum. In the background, Ayumu shields her terrified children. Aniki mockingly asks if Oshiro wants to give him his personal info, offering to share it with all his rotten friends. With a surge of adrenaline, Oshiro pulls at his jacket and shouts his name for all to hear. Ojiro Shintaro, the hero who will save this nation. A strange calm comes over Oshiro. He looks Aniki in the eye and tells him, "You guys should have shot me when you had the chance." Aniki is momentarily confused by Oshiro's sudden shift in demeanor. Soji notices Oshiro is acting strangely and asks Aniki if he can finish the job. But Aniki, seeing something amiss, tells him to wait. Aniki's eyes lock onto a string hanging from Oshiro's zipper. He begins to realize that this man is not just some dumb amateur. With a cold stare, Oshiro asks the Yakuza if they want him to teach them what real determination is. Oshiro rips open his hoodie to reveal a vest strapped to his chest. He declares that the string is the switch for a suicide bomber jacket. Aniki's bravado vanishes, replaced by sheer panic. He glances around and sees what looks like explosives packed and ready. Aniki's eyes dart to the packages strapped to Oshiro's chest. They're just books. But the bluff is too convincing. Terror grips him as he screams at Soji to get away. The Yakuza boss, completely terrified, shoves Oshiro forward, screaming that the man is a terrorist. Oshiro pulls the ring on the string, bidding them farewell. From the bathroom, Yatsuba peeks out, her face filled with fear. Yatsuba calls out to the old man. The scene shatters, revealing Ayumu on the floor, now holding a gun. The chapter comes to a shocking end. With a final pull, Oshiro says farewell. The title of the story, Amateur Vigilante, is displayed over the chaotic scene. Aniki recoils in horror, realizing what is about to happen as Oshiro once again declares his name. In a flashback, Oshiro reveals his thought process. He admits he was naive and purposely added a time lag to the jacket's detonator. The time lag was 3 seconds. In his fantasies, after he'd shoot a politician, the guards would rush to arrest him. Those 3 seconds were the time he calculated he would need to escape the ensuing explosion. He reflects on his own hypocrisy. He thought he didn't want to hurt civilians, but realized the only thing a murderer truly leaves behind is their own hypocrisy. He realizes that this very hypocrisy, his flawed and contradictory nature, is what gave him a way out of this desperate situation. A digital countdown appears, 3 seconds. As the timer begins, sheer terror takes over. The Yakuza scramble to get away from the blast zone, their professional demeanor completely shattered. The timer hits 2 seconds. As the Yakuza desperately flee, Oshiro lunges forward, shielding his body for the feigned explosion. But in the chaos, another, more decisive action is quietly taking place. But before the countdown can finish, Ayumu, who had picked up one of the Yakuza's dropped guns, takes aim. Soji turns just in time to see her pointing the weapon at his boss. The timer hits 1 second. Yatsuba watches from the bathroom as Oshiro lunges. But it's not a bomb that goes off. It's the crack of a gunshot fired by Ayumu, who sits on the floor irresolute. The bullet finds its mark, blowing Aniki's face apart in a gruesome explosion of blood and bone. Aniki's lifeless body collapses to the floor as Soji watches in stunned horror. Oshiro, his hoodie now off, clicks his tongue in annoyance as he realizes the bomb was just books. He looks down at Aniki's body, a grim understanding on his face. A weary, blood-stained smile creeps across Oshiro's face. He survived. This is bad, isn't it? He mutters to himself. After all, I still can't die. Soji, snapping out of his shock, remembers a time he was relaxing at home. But the present horror brings him back, and he stares at the gun in his hand, his mind racing. Enraged and panicked, Soji opens fire, screaming his own name as he wildly shoots at Oshiro. But now the tables have turned. Oshiro, shirtless and on his home turf, feels a surge of confidence. This time, he knows, he will definitely win this fight. Soji screams, pointing his gun, but his target is clear. Oshiro remembers the countless hours he spent training in this very room, his walls covered with the faces of politicians he planned to assassinate. With newfound determination, Oshiro declares, "This is my domain." Before Soji can get a clear shot, Oshiro expertly throws a knife, disarming the Yakuza with pinpoint accuracy. Soji stares in disbelief as his guns clatter to the floor, his mouth bloody and his confidence shattered. Oshiro isn't finished. He throws another dart, pinning the terrified Soji to the wall by his clothes. The fight is over. Yatsuba emerges from the hole in the wall, calling out to Oshiro. Exhausted and covered in bruises, he turns to her, his body aching. Despite his injuries, Oshiro gives Yatsuba a thumbs up. The old man won. He reassures her with a weak smile. The family surveys the gruesome aftermath. 2 dead Yakuza lie in their small apartment. Ayumu and her children stare in shock, while Yatsuba watches from the side, trembling. But Soji isn't done. He pulls a mask over his face, his expression turning cold. "I knew it," he snarls. "After all, you are just an amateur." Soji screams, pulling out a second gun with a silencer and pointing it directly at Oshiro. But just as he's about to fire, another shot rings out, and Soji is thrown back by the impact. The scene freezes on Soji pointing his gun, Oshiro's look of surprise, and Yatsuba's terrified face as the second fatal shot is fired. The bullet tears through Soji's head, killing him instantly, just as he was about to execute Oshiro. Soji's body falls beside his bosses, his plan for revenge cut short. Ayumu stands over them, the gun still in her hand. The room falls into a deafening silence. The last Yakuza's eyes are frozen in the shock of death as Oshiro looks on, slowly processing the sudden, violent end to the confrontation. Ayumu stands over the carnage, the gun still gripped tightly in her hands. Her terrified children cling to her, their gazes fixed not on the dead bodies, but on their mother, who has been pushed far beyond her limit to protect them. Ayumu's hands tremble as she holds the gun. Her children watch stunned as their mother, covered in shadows, mutters to herself, "Ugh, this is bad." The adrenaline fades, leaving only the horrifying reality of her actions. In the silent aftermath, Ayumu kneels beside the bodies, the gun on the floor. Oshiro, bruised but alive, stands with Yatsuba clinging to his side. The grim truth settles in as Ayumu voices their new, desperate reality. "We really have to move out now." From a car driving through the city at night, a voice yells out, trying to quell a fight that has broken out within the vehicle. Inside, we see the driver, Oshiro Shintaro, and his passenger, Marisa Yamamoto, grabbing a quick meal while a chaotic scene unfolds with multiple children in the back. The chaos is coming from the back seat, where Marisa's children are bickering and fighting over a fish burger, creating a ruckus. Marisa, completely overwhelmed, turns around and starts yelling at all of her children by name. Yugo, Nanami, Ayumu, Mia, and Yatsuba, trying to get them under control. Oshiro and Marisa share a moment of mutual exhaustion. Marisa sighs, noting that at least her 3 oldest children are already independent, which has made her life slightly easier. While eating his burger, Oshiro turns to Marissa and says something completely unexpected. He tells her that before he got involved with her, he thought she was a terrible parent. Marissa is taken aback by his bluntness, but he continues his thought, clarifying that he now thinks she's a great parent. Marissa seems surprised by the unexpected compliment, but Oshiro isn't finished. He adds that she's 10 times better than his own parents, but her luck with men is the worst he's ever seen. Marissa can't help but agree that it's true. Oshiro continues his strange attempt at bonding, adding that his own neighbor is a crazy old man, as if comparing their misfortunes. Looking back at her kids, Marissa laments that all of their fathers were also crazy. In her eyes, not a single one of them was a decent person. As the car continues down the road, Marissa looks out the back window with a heavy heart, thinking that these kids have no one else but her to rely on. Her determination flashes in her eyes as she remembers a dark moment from her past. A flashback shows her holding a gun, swearing she would do whatever it takes to raise her children, even if it meant shooting a Yakuza in the head. With that fierce resolve, she turns to Oshiro and makes a stunning proposal. She tells him that if he protects her kids, she would even become his woman. Oshiro is completely flustered by her offer. He stammers, trying to make it clear that he wasn't thinking about anything like that. Marissa seems amused by his reaction, calling him arrogant, but admitting that his protective nature is a good quality. She insists they exchange contact information, just for emergencies, while teasing that he probably doesn't have any other girl's contacts anyway. They exchange numbers, and Oshiro saves her contact as Marissa Yamamoto. He glances at the new contact on his phone while continuing to eat his burger. Oshiro reflects on the strange outcome of his recent battles. What did he get from all that fighting? The contact information of a mother of 8. The scene changes. The Yamamoto family has found a temporary safe haven, hiding out in a guest house in Hokkaido owned by Marissa's older brother. However, Oshiro announces that he will not be joining them. He's staying behind. As Marissa and her children stand by the car, ready to go into hiding, she looks at Oshiro with concern. She knew he wasn't coming, but she still has to ask, is he really going to fight those guys alone? Oshiro just smirks, giving a cryptic and nonchalant reply. He says that what he's about to do is a lot easier than overthrowing the government. The children wave goodbye to Oshiro. He tells Yatsuba to take care, and she wishes him farewell in return. As he walks away, Oshiro admits to himself that saying goodbye was harder than he expected. He realizes what this feeling is. This is what it feels like to part ways with someone. In the distance, Yatsuba just stands and watches him go. He looks back, his expression hardening as he thinks about the kids' past. All of their fathers walked out on them. He wonders if they've grown used to this kind of abandonment. From his perspective, he watches Yatsuba standing there, looking downcast. He concludes that yes, they've probably gotten used to the pain of never seeing people again. But something inside him snaps. Unwilling to accept that conclusion, he runs back in a sudden burst of emotion. He scoops Yatsuba up into his arms, shocking everyone as he yells at her, telling her not to get used to it. As Yatsuba looks on in shock, Oshiro yells with desperate passion. He tells her not to get used to parting ways, because that will only make her feel lonely. Getting used to this life of abandonment, he warns, will make her feel even lonelier. Holding her gently, he makes a solemn promise. He tells her that this old man will definitely come back, and that he won't let her feel scared ever again. He vows to protect them all, no matter what. He sets her down and wipes her tears, promising her that everything will be okay. With his promise made, he turns and walks away for the final time as the family watches. From a nearby balcony, Marissa holds a crying Yatsuba, covering her eyes from the sight of Oshiro's departure. As they watch him go, Marissa whispers that they will wait for him. The scene cuts abruptly to a crowd of men in suits. The focus is now on a speech being given by Mito Taisher, the leader of the Neon Koden Party and the Prime Minister of Japan. On television screens across the country, Prime Minister Mito Taisher begins his address to the citizens of Japan. He speaks of the nation facing an unprecedented crisis, listing disasters, economic recession, inequality, and rising crime rates. Over a sprawling view of the city, he vows to stop this crisis with his body and soul. His speech continues, promising that even in these difficult times, the government will not abandon anyone. These words are spoken over a shot of a desolate, abandoned warehouse by the docks. As the Prime Minister preaches about self-reliance and asks the people to fight alongside him, the scene cuts to Oshiro at the same abandoned warehouse, preparing to mix a bag of cement. The horrifying reality of Oshiro's actions is revealed. He isn't just mixing cement. He's pouring it over the severed head of the Yakuza member he killed, which he has placed in a barrel. As the Prime Minister's call to fight echoes, Oshiro kicks the heavy barrel into the dark water, disposing of the evidence. This is his way of fighting back. A wide, lonely shot of the industrial port is shown, with the single word "fight" hanging in the air, contrasting the scale of the nation's problems with Oshiro's solitary war. The word "fight" follows Oshiro as he navigates the maze of shipping containers, eventually entering one that serves as his hidden base of operations. Inside, his eyes burn with a cold fire. He points a pistol forward, his resolve hardened, and his personal fight about to get even more intense. It's revealed what Oshiro is aiming at. A man tied to a chair with a paper bag over his head, a target drawn on it. He is using a live human for target practice, marking the end of the first volume. The story continues with Chapter 6, titled Abandoned Port, as Oshiro takes aim in his dark hideout. A wider view shows the scene inside the shipping container. Oshiro stands ready to fire at his captive, who is positioned in front of a hand-drawn diagram on the wall. The captive Yakuza member begins to scream in terror from underneath the bag, covering his head. With cold determination, Oshiro looks down the sights of his pistol, his finger on the trigger. He mutters a single word: "Die." He pulls the trigger, but instead of a fatal gunshot, there's only a soft pop. He isn't using live ammunition for his practice. Oshiro continues to practice, firing multiple pellets from what appears to be an airsoft gun, which bounce harmlessly off the captive. Tears of frustration well up in his eyes. He lowers the gun, muttering to himself that it doesn't feel like he's practiced nearly enough. He laments that it's not like he can practice with real ammo, acknowledging that the gun in his hand is not a toy. Fed up, Oshiro rips the bag from the captive's head. The enraged Yakuza, the brother of the man Oshiro killed, screams at him, daring him to hand over the gun so he can train him properly. Oshiro calmly replies that there's no way he'd do that, since the man would obviously shoot him. The captive screams back with manic intensity, "Well, of course." The scene pans out to the container yard at night, as the captive's angry thoughts echo. He rages about being locked up for days, and being used for target practice. His anger is fueled by grief. He screams at Oshiro, enraged that his brother was sunk in the bay, and repeatedly vows to kill him. Tired of the screaming, Oshiro calmly presses a taser to the captive's chest, silencing him with a jolt of electricity. As the captive recovers, Oshiro coldly tells him to shut up. He throws the man's own worldview back at him, stating that they are in a kill-or-be-killed situation, the philosophy of a professional. The captive scoffs at the word philosophy, calling it something that idiots study. He mocks Oshiro for being a lowlife who believes in conspiracy theories. Oshiro seems genuinely surprised to be called a conspiracy theorist. The captive presses his verbal attack, pointing a finger and accusing him of being a terrorist. The captive lays out his evidence. Oshiro's room smells of gunpowder. He has homemade guns, political posters on the walls, and stacks of ridiculous books. In his eyes, it all adds up to one thing: terrorist. He continues to taunt Oshiro, saying he doesn't know the specific reason for targeting politicians, but bets he just fell for some theory he found online. Oshiro looks down, considering the captive's words for a moment, before looking up with a neutral expression and dismissing it all. "It does not matter," he says. He then walks to the evidence board on his wall. Pointing to the various documents and photos, he reveals his true focus. "Right now, my objective is the Kokubu group." Oshiro explains that he has an overwhelming amount of evidence, including human trafficking documents from the Yakuza office and data from a phone. He then points to the captive's own file, finally revealing his name, Sarama Souchi. With his face cast in shadow and his eyes burning with intensity, Oshiro declares that destroying the Kokubu group is his mission now. Sarama Souchi starts to laugh, mocking Oshiro's grand plan. Destroy? And how do you plan to do that? He asks if Oshiro plans a shooting or a massacre, warning him that he's the one who will get the death penalty. Oshiro calmly scratches his head, completely unconcerned. He states that he doesn't care about the death penalty, and because he can't trust the police or the media, he has to take matters into his own hands. Sarama asks what he's going to do then. Oshiro holds up a smartphone and reveals his 21st century solution. I'll spread the evidence online. Sarama is stunned into silence as Oshiro shows him a new, anonymous social media account he has created specifically for this purpose. Oshiro scrolls through his phone. He admits that right now, he doesn't have many connections or followers, but he's confident that it's just a matter of time. He then reveals the full scope of his digital attack. He has already created a thread on an anonymous forum with tons of pictures, and he has sent direct messages to 50 different influencers to get the word out. Standing over his makeshift desk, Oshiro tells Sarama to give up. He's certain that once the masses get a hold of this information, the Kokubu group is finished. All he has to do now, Oshiro explains, is lie low until the rumors spread. As he waits, he plans to stay there and make Sarama confess. He calmly lights a cigarette. In a bizarre power move, Oshiro casually blows a cloud of smoke directly into his captive's face. Sarama Souchi just glares back, his face shrouded in the smoke, completely unfazed by the gesture. The two enemies stare at each other. Sarama then asks if Oshiro smokes American spirits. Oshiro replies that he smokes Mevius, and Sarama asks him for one, reasoning that he's owed that much since Oshiro killed his brother. A strange truce forms as Oshiro gives his captive a cigarette. The two men, a Vigilante and a Yakuza, smoke together in the tense silence of the container, a moment of calm before the storm. As they smoke, Oshiro glances toward his laptop and radio setup. He breaks the silence, not with a threat, but with a strange, almost nervous question for Sarama. Are you feeling relieved? Oshiro suddenly looks worried. He mutters that this place shouldn't be traceable because he turned off his phone's location services. But then, a horrifying possibility dawns on him as he looks at his evidence board. Could someone have found his location from the pictures he uploaded? Before he can fully process the thought, the sound of multiple heavy boots can be heard running just outside the container. His worst fear is confirmed. A squad of heavily armed Yakuza are swarming the container yard. A narration box explains his fatal mistake. Photos taken on smartphones have embedded geotags, while major social media platforms automatically remove that data. The anonymous forums he used do not. Oshiro stands in stunned silence, the full weight of his amateur mistake crashing down on him. His own captive, Sarama Souchi, looks at him with contempt and delivers the final verdict on his failed plan. Dumbass.